For units like these Empire Militia, there's a lot of fabric, but when you're painting loads of cloth, it's really easy to get bored, or to make your units look muddy and repetitive. In this video, I'm going to show you some of my top tricks for painting units that look crisp, varied and battle ready, even when batch painting lots of models at once. I cover every stage from base coat to shading and highlights, and even some optional extra touches to add detail and texture. Let's get started. I'm going to begin with shirts and tunics. I've base coated all of my models with Wraithbone, and for some, I'm going to start by painting the cloth with Skeleton Horde contrast. This makes quite a warm cream cloth when finished, so for a bit of variation, I'm going to base coat some shirts with Grey Seer instead, for a cooler white. I then shade these with Apothecary White contrast. My Empire army is Talapine themed, so I want some models to have red shirts, beginning with a base coat of Vorbak Red. You can of course pick whatever colour you want here, but alternating a few shirts like this is a good way of keeping your models cohesive with the overall army scheme, even when they're not wearing a uniform. For the trousers, I'm again going to begin by painting some in Skeleton Horde. Then, for the others, I'm going to show you how you can use the exact same paint to create two completely different finishes, effectively doubling the variation with no extra work. I'm going to paint some trousers with Garaghak Sewer straight from the pot. And then, I'm going to dilute it with equal parts contrast medium, and paint other trousers with this mix. You can see how just by diluting the paint and changing its saturation, you create a very different looking fabric. With all the base coats and shades applied, we can start to highlight. For anywhere I shaded with Skeleton Horde, I'm going to reapply Wraithbone over the fabric, re-establishing the base colour and leaving the recesses shaded. On flatter areas like the trousers, I dilute this to a glaze consistency and apply it focusing on higher areas and where the light hits. Diluting the paint like this will allow you to build up highlights more smoothly when there aren't any folds and raised areas. Next, with Pallid Witch Flesh, I'm going to edge highlight the fabric, focusing on the folds and raised areas. For the flatter areas, I'm again going to dilute it to a glaze, and apply it over a smaller area, focusing even more on the top faces of the fabric. And finally, with White Scar, I'm going to spot highlight the most extreme points. On the trousers, I use this to emphasize the seams in the fabric. On the cool white cloth, I'm going to re-establish Grey Seer, leaving the recesses shaded. Then, I'm going to edge highlight the folds with Ulthuan Grey, and finally spot highlight with White Scar. For the red cloth, I'm going to apply Khorne Red over most of the fabric, leaving Vorbak Red in the deepest recesses. Then, with equal parts Khorne Red and Evil Sunz Scarlet, I start building up colour on the flat areas, focusing towards the top edges. I next do the same thing over a slightly smaller area with Evil Sunz Scarlet alone. With Wild Rider Red, I edge highlight the creases and folds. And finally, I spot highlight these with Trollslayer Orange. One thing I like to do whilst I have these paints on the palette is to add a little more detail to my cream trousers by painting stripes with Khorne Red, that I then highlight with Evil Sunz Scarlet and spot highlight with Trollslayer Orange. This is entirely optional, but it's quite a fun way to mark out command models. On the darker trousers, I apply Steel Legion Drab over much of the fabric. I then add equal parts Karak Stone and start to build up highlights on the flatter fabric, again focusing on top facing areas. With Karak Stone I paint some thick edge highlights, and on the flatter areas, I suggest some texture with dots and scratches. This is a really great way to add visual interest on flatter areas of cloth, and also make it look worn, rugged and real. With equal parts Karak Stone and Screaming Skull, I apply very fine edge highlights on the most raised points. And further emphasise the scratches and dots. And finally, with Screaming Skull, I apply some very small spot highlights. For the lighter trousers, we're going to follow a very similar approach, starting with covering most of the fabric with Karak Stone. Then, cover a smaller area with equal parts Karak Stone and Screaming Skull to build up colour. Edge highlight the fabric with Screaming Skull, and again apply dots and scratches on the flatter surfaces. And finally, apply very small spot highlights with equal parts Screaming Skull and Skull White. And there we are, with almost exactly the same paints, we've ended up with two completely different looking sets of trousers. If your fabric has patches, you can simply base coat these with Wraithbone, wash them with Targor Rageshade, and finally edge highlight them with Pallid Witch Flesh. And there we are, with just a small number of paints you can really make your unit feel visually coherent, but still give each model some individuality. Once you've got the cloth sorted, the next thing is to make your leather and metal areas really pop, and I'll be showing some fast tricks for these in the next video. For now, all that remains is to thank my members. Your support really means so much. Please do consider becoming a member yourself if you enjoyed this video, and like and subscribe to be notified when the next tutorial drops. I'll see you next time, and until then, happy painting.